Hello, 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 and thanks for joining us for Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and I want to invite you to sit back and eavesdrop on our conversation as we share a little bit of wit and wisdom and some wonderful guests who help women navigate career and life challenges and changes. Now, and most importantly, I want you to know that you are not alone, no matter what it is you're going through right now. Every week, through our conversations, we share resources to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. We stream live every week, every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming platforms like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where you can interact with us. And if you prefer to listen to your favorite episodes while you're on the run, we're on all the podcast channels as well. So if you find something today that inspires you and you want more, please subscribe to your favorite channel, leave us a comment, and share your favorite episodes so we can create more ripples in the world for women. Now, we talk a lot about leadership on this show because I get questions from my clients all the time about how to become an inspiring leader. And it's not a one size fits all answer. So I love to talk to other experts about their perspectives on leadership. And today we'll dig deeply into one of the foundational elements of successful leadership. I am thrilled to welcome Melanie Luedtke-Taylor to the show. She's a distinguished leadership expert with her 25 years of experience in corporate, and she and I spent many of those years together as colleagues at IBM. Melanie's mission is to redefine leadership by elevating emotional intelligence and self-leadership. As a master certified coach and a certified expert in emotional intelligence, DISC, and Motivators profiles, Melanie brings comprehensive expertise to this conversation. She'll share her journey, including how her low vision condition has shaped her perspective on leadership. We'll explore what self-leadership encompasses, why it's essential, and how it can help us achieve our goals and navigate change. Melanie will also discuss common areas where women struggle with emotional intelligence and provide practical tips to assess and improve your self-leadership skills. So stay with us to learn how to elevate your leadership and make lasting difference in your career and professional life. You won't want to miss this insightful conversation with Melanie Luedtke-Taylor. So here we go. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Maria. It's so nice to see you again.
Thank you. It's so nice to have you here. I was inspired by a TED Talk that you have done recently, the link for which, by the way, will be in the show notes so everybody gets to see it. And when I learned that you had also left IBM and were working in this field that I am so passionate about, I had to have you on.
Well, I appreciate it for sure. It's definitely a passion of mine, and I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to
All
share.
right. Well, let's get started. I'd love first to have you describe self-leadership. So,
Sure.
what are the components of that, and why is it so foundational?
Yeah. So self-leadership, is kind of the basis for people leadership. So the way I kind of look at it is it's really rooted in self-recognition. So being able to recognize how you respond to things, self-management, being able to motivate yourself. Positive psychology is another important part of self-leadership. In addition, it's kind of rooted in social recognition theory, which basically means that your behavior is learned by external forces, and a level of effectiveness in dealing with our world around us, which sometimes can be really challenging. And then it's also rooted in self-determination theories. So basically, the need for us to feel competent in what we do, have autonomous decision making, and also feel connected to others. So that's what self-leadership is really rooted in. And I feel like the basis of that is really emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence really gives us a framework for a lot of those different areas. So have the emotional intelligence, be a self leader, be a better people leader is how.
Ah, beautiful. All right. So I want to unwrap that a little bit.
Sure.
So you talked about some really important things, self-awareness,
Yes.
uh, decision making, motivation,
Yep.
uh, embracing change, right?
Oh, is important. Absolutely.
Right.
That's part of EI for sure.
Yep. Yep. And having self discipline and self-regulation. So
Yes.
lots of great lots of great self stuff in that explanation. And there are so many ways to learn that, all of those
Yes.
things, right?
Yeah, you're not born with this, right? This is a learned skill without
Right.
a doubt. And there are a lot of ways to learn it, from experience, trial and error, obviously, but also working on yourself, having a mentor who can help you kind of see outside of yourself is also very helpful. There are definitely emotional intelligence exercises that you can do. But it's usually the little things every day that actually help you kind of build this framework for yourself. Things like, um, just putting reminders around to motivate yourself, right? Maybe favorite quotes, or building a room that you absolutely love that brings out your creativity. There are really so many ways that you can exercise this skill, if you will, to continue to learn more about yourself. And being able to take that then and be better with working with others, because that's why we do it, right? EI is actually built on four things, two of which are self, two of which are everyone else. So
Yeah, so you're right about it being learned. And I think one of the most important pieces of that is being self-aware
yes,
that things are happening, right? And that we are recognizing what's happening and we are learning from it, right? So there's self reflection that goes on in that, right?
absolutely. And self-awareness, I think, is really the basis, right?
Yeah,
It's knowing yourself, but not just knowing yourself, but knowing how you respond to things, being
yeah,
appreciative of who you are, right, as a person, being able to self drive and, have a positive mindset. Like those all go into being able to recognize how you feel in the moment and being able to respond to that appropriately.
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 Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's hard to do,
Yes.
right? Because our emotions get triggered by something that happens, and especially if we are in a work environment, it's not always appropriate to react to the trigger.
Absolutely. And
So
that's where self-management part of EI comes in, right?
right, right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. You might
exactly.
know how you feel, but being able to manage to that is another part, an important part of having
Yeah,
emotional intelligence.
right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's break down emotional intelligence a little
Sure.
bit more. what what are the parts of that you described?
Sure.
And Len, let's also talk about the areas of emotional intelligence that women might struggle with most.
Yeah. So there are really four parts, right? You have self awareness, you have self management, you have social awareness, and you have social management. So self awareness is and self management are typically where women are challenged, just particularly in the area of self appreciation. I see usually lower scores in that area in women of all ages, actually. And then in self management, typically in motivation and positive psychology, usually lower scores, things like negative self-talk, that
Mm,
mean voice inside your head that tells you aren't good enough, or anything else that it's telling you. Women struggle with those two areas. Social awareness are things like empathy, having empathy for others, which usually women have been known to be relatively good at. And then social management, which is really about teamwork and collaboration. Negotiation is in this area as well. So those are the four areas of emotional intelligence. And of course, every woman is different based on their past history, based on all of their experiences that they bring. But pretty consistently, I see self appreciation and motivation and positive psychology as lower scores for women.
that's so interesting that this is still this is still
Still,
the case, uh, decades and centuries
yep, it's like
long.
ingrained
Right?
in who we
It
are,
is.
I think. Hmm.
It is, and it's a hard legacy to overcome
Yes,
successfully and consistently, right?
yes,
So
it is.
sometimes we can be, we can step into it and be very confident and assertive and have, the right amount of gravitas
Yes,
and be seen the way we want to be seen and teach others how to treat us. Sometimes we can be really good at that,
yes, we
and then
can.
other times that self-talk that you described, that inner voice, that self-doubt
Sneaks
can
in.
rear its ugly head and kind of take over.
Yeah. Before you even really recognize that it's taking over, right? I
Sometimes, yeah.
teach a lot about, how to actually recognize that this is happening, and then how to reverse it, right? You know, if you're telling yourself you're not good enough, how do you reverse that? Right? How do you say, well, that's crazy. I'm doing really well in X, Y, and Z. You use logic to help squelch that voice, because we all have it. We all have it.
Yep.
But there are those of us that struggle with it more than others, in that you're just telling yourself things that you would never tell someone else out loud. So why are you doing that to yourself?
Right.
It's just this constant circle of self-doubt that you propagate thinking that way.
And we, um, by example, we're taught to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And question ourselves all
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, I can think of, I can still hear my father's voice. I grew up with three older brothers
yeah,
and the only girl and the youngest. So yeah, I can hear him say, little girls don't do that.
right? I hear my mom's voice, right? Like we all have that voice that
Yeah.
probably sounds like one of our parents, let's be honest. It's just a voice that is questioning, and you don't have to question yourself in that
Right.
negative way. You can
Right.
question yourself in a positive way.
Right.
right?
And a great question to ask is that really true?
Is that real?
Is
Right.
that
Is that
really
really
true?
real?
Is it
Um,
true that I can't do that just because my father said I shouldn't?
right.
Right. It's
I
not
was
true.
I was in a classroom of young women who were graduating high school a few weeks back, and we worked on that. We worked on, what are your goals, or what are your fears? What are your goals and your fears about those goals? And then tell me why they're real. And no one can
Yeah.
tell you why your fear is real. It's not real in most cases. So I think it's a real struggle. And I know we're going to get into, what I deal with on a daily basis, but it's a constant struggle that you have to work through.
Yeah, indeed. And that's a great segue because I want I want to hear about your story. I know that you are out there with it
Yeah.
now and in a big way. And I think it's so important for people to hear how what you struggle with has influenced your perspective
Yes.
on self leadership in itself, and emotional intelligence. So share
Yeah.
your story a little bit with us.
100%. And right now I'm even hearing my dad's voice going, "You don't need to share. You don't need to talk
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
it."
yeah. All right, we're
Um,
shutting him down now.
yes, we're
Right now,
shutting
we're
him
shutting him
down.
down.
It's okay, Dad. Like,
With
I'm going to
love,
be
Dad.
okay. I'm going to be okay. Um, so I was born with a rare eye disease that causes me to go blind over time, and it is hereditary. So that's why my dad's voice is in my head. My dad has it, my brother has it, my uncles have it, my cousins have it. So it's a rare disease that basically destroys your rods and cones in your retina over time. So it causes peripheral vision, and then it kind of slowly closes in. My father, my grandfather, are mostly, my grandfather was blind when he passed away. My father is mostly blind. My brother and I are near legally blind. So this is an overtime thing. When I was in grade school and high school and college and even early on in my career, I didn't feel any of the effects really. They weren't really there. You knew it was coming, but it wasn't really there. And so over time, I've had to adjust continually to this, in that I had to teach myself to be positive. I had to teach myself how to transition. I went from playing sports to not being able to play sports, to, driving around my daughter, to now I can't drive at all, to, to working in events, to having a really difficult time doing that. So I've had to transition throughout the years into, what my life looks like today. And as part of self leadership, it's really important, because when you talk about things like, appreciating yourself and who you are, accepting that you have this, and what you're going to do with it, it just has changed significantly, who I am, and what I'm passionate about, and how I live my life. And I have a fable to tell you, Maria, in
Okay.
that it's the fable of two frogs which find themselves in a bucket of cream, and one frog, knowing he can't get out, knowing he can't climb out, uh, just succumbs to his fate. He just drowns in the cream. The other frog is like, I'm not going out that way, right? And just keeps moving his legs and moving his legs and moving his legs until he makes butter and he's able to climb out. It's an old fable, but I kind of feel like my disease is the cream, right? I could choose every day to have that piece of my world drown me in negativity. I could
But
choose that,
no, no, you're
because
making butter.
that's what self leadership is about. It's about choices. You have choices no matter what is hard in your life. And trust me, we
Yeah.
all have hard things.
Oh boy, that is such a powerful story, Melanie. Thank you so much for sharing it. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. I know that and I had no idea when we were working together at IBM.
Most
No
people did
idea.
not. I really hid it from most people. So,
Yeah, and I can understand why.
hmm,
But let's talk about that for a second.
sure,
The choice you made to not reveal what was happening to your eyesight.
sure.
What were you afraid of?
Honestly, I was afraid of someone thinking that I couldn't do my job to the best of my ability. That's what I was afraid of, right? Of course, my dad's head was in my voice was in my head saying, they're gonna let you go.
They're going to find out.
You're gonna lose your health insurance. You're gonna, those are all the things my dad actually did tell me at one point, right? So
Right,
I had that in my head, but it really was for me about feeling like somebody would question if I was not doing my job as well as it could be done. And when it got to that point, when I finally got to the point where I felt like I couldn't do my job as well as I wanted to, that's when I moved on, right? Because that to me was my motivation to work in the first place, was doing a good job. And so when it got too hard to be in dark rooms, I delegated, right? I delegated to my team or something else. But when it really got to the point where I couldn't attend night events, I knew it was time for me to move on. I just
right,
did.
right. So let's talk about how it affected your ability to lead your team.
Yeah. I actually don't feel like it did. I don't
Mm,
feel like it did. And the reason is because I worked so hard on my own emotional intelligence and my own self leadership to accept what was going on, to prepare in every scenario you can think of, right? I would spend extra time preparing for. If I had to find a room that I didn't know where it was, floor maps. I really prepared for everything I could think of. And then every day I just kind of coped with it, and
mm,
I think it brought me closer to my team in some ways when I finally told several of them that I worked with really closely. I think they just kind of went, "Well, I have no idea." I'm like, "Yeah,
right,
I know."
right.
And then, they said, "Okay, let's go."
Yeah, so when you became transparent to your
Mhm.
team or some of them about what was going on, they stepped up.
Of course.
So there's
Yeah.
uh, you're modeling transparency, authenticity,
Yes.
and the need for help,
For help.
asking for help.
We're
That's a
so bad at
hard
that
thing. That's a
as
hard thing
women.
to do.
We're so bad at that. It took
Yeah, we
me,
are
I
bad
don't
at
know
that.
how many years to ask for
Yeah,
help, right?
yeah,
But it is part of being a self leader, is knowing when you need help
yeah.
and asking for it from the people you trust. And I finally was able to do that.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about how self leadership can help us achieve our goals, um, and particularly those uh, that we set when we are moving through significant career or life changes, similar to the way you did, right? And many of us do in our lifetimes. We all have significant changes that we have to move through. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, part of self leadership is being able to set good goals, have goal setting, being able to self reward yourself, whether it's positively and sometimes even negative self rewards are actually a good thing. And when you're transitioning, setting proper goals for yourself is so critically important. When I talked about the fact that I met with these, young women who were seniors in high school, ready to transition to their new life, whether it was college or something else, and we really worked a lot on goal setting, because being able to know what you want, being able to set appropriate goals to get what you want, being able to build um, to that goal, because let's face it, almost any goal worth achieving is not just something simple. It takes multiple steps to get there, whether it's finding the help you need or getting the education you need or whatever it is. So being able to back out from your goal, all the things you need to achieve as stepping stones, and then having the self-motivation to do it, right? Not just writing that goal, but getting out there and doing it. Um, when I was, when I was in my late 20s, I met with a coach, and I just kind of told her, I said, I don't know what I want to be in my life. Like, I have no idea. I fell into this job. I love marketing, but I fell into it. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, why do you have to just be one thing? And I said, yeah, why do I just have to be one thing? Why does any of us have to just be one thing?
Yeah.
I took that to heart, really to heart. And I created myself a vision board that had the craziest things on it, that I wanted to achieve. And by the time I was, about 42, I actually crossed all those things off. So being a TED speaker, being an author, having my MBA, they were just these huge goals. But it's because I set those goals, I built a plan to get to those goals, and I self-motivated to want to achieve them. And that is what's really important about transitioning, is setting goals and doing it.
You said something very important right there. Wanting to achieve them,
Wanting. Yes,
right?
wanting.
So you got to know what you want. You got to know what you want.
Yeah. And it took
And
me
it,
a long time to figure that out. I'm not
well,
going to
yeah,
lie.
and it should. But so therein lies a lot of the things that we were talking about earlier, right? The self reflection,
Yep.
right? The self
Being
awareness,
aware. Mm-hmm.
really asking yourself, getting really curious, and asking yourself some tough questions, and figuring out what matters to me, what really matters, what are those, core life values that I live by.
Right.
And when you're really centered on what those are, what matters most, then that helps guide your your decisions and your choices, right?
It definitely does. Understanding who you are, what your values are, what kind of experiences you've had that led you to this point, is all the basis for trying to figure out what it is that you want to do, who you want to be when you grow up. But the
Right.
thing is you can be all kinds of things. And I
And
think,
many things at once,
and
right?
many things. Yeah, I've worn so many hats at one time.
And yeah, and women are really, really good at that.
Yes, we are.
We're
Very
really,
good.
really good at being in multiple roles.
Mm-hmm.
But herein lies the problem with that, right? Finding the what I call the harmony. Many
Yes.
people call it work-life balance, but finding the harmony in our lives so that we can be all those things.
Yep.
We can be an author and a speaker and a businesswoman and a wife and a mother
Yep.
and whatever else.
Yep.
And that's all part of our lives, right?
It is. And I think the basis for that is really understanding what that consists of, right? If you're wearing a hat that isn't part of who you are, you need to find a way to remove that hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have priorities, you have choices, right? And self-leadership is based in the fact that you have choices in this world. You have the world doesn't tell you, matter of fact, it really says that who you are as a person, the choices that you make drive what world you live in, right? So that frog in the cream, chose not to let the world decide its fate. He chose his fate.
Yeah. He made butter.
He made that choice.
He made
So,
butter. Yeah. Now
and that's what we struggle to do every day, I think.
yeah, yeah. So I love what you just said. We can make those choices. But I work with a lot of women who are living by someone else's standard, expectation,
Yes.
idea of what's right for them. And that's a hat, like you said. That's a hat that doesn't fit.
That's a hat that doesn't fit. Right.
And we need to recognize that when it becomes so hard to wear it, right? That's when we feel like the soul's being sucked out of us, or we're just so unhappy. We can't figure out why. We've got everything we wanted, right? We can't figure out why we're so unhappy because we're wearing a hat that doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit. Exactly. And I think that's, part of that self-leadership theory, the self-determination theory is that you need to feel competent and you need to feel like you have autonomy, right? And sometimes just what you're saying, the world makes you feel like you don't have autonomy, right? That you don't have the ability to make your own choices,
Mhm.
that something is being pushed on you. I mean, my disease was definitely pushed on me. I don't have a choice about that. There's no cure, nothing I can do about it. It just is what it is, right? But
Right,
that doesn't mean that I can't choose to make the best of that either,
right.
right?
To accept and adapt.
Accept and adapt.
Right,
And believe that I can do things. I might
right.
not be able to drive anymore, but I certainly have value to do other things. And I think sometimes we get so stuck with the things we can't do anymore. I'm wearing this
Right.
hat that doesn't fit, so I can't do this other thing. We get so stuck in thinking we can't do this other thing that we forget that we actually can do things. Like we have choices to do other things.
Yes, we just have to do them differently.
Yes.
And that we have to teach ourselves. What
Mhm.
is that different way?
It's
How
all
could
learning.
we look at this in a new way, get a new perspective on it?
Right.
It's reminding me of my husband right now because he lives with chronic pain and was an athlete all his life.
Yeah.
So not being able to do the things that he loved to do and now can barely walk or
Yeah.
stand is a hard pill to swallow,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. And it's
And figuring out, so what could you do differently? What could you do instead?
right.
There,
Right.
yeah, it's hard to do that. It's
It is
very hard to do that.
so hard to do it,
Yeah,
and self-leadership isn't about positivity, right? It's not about having a positive attitude. That's not what it is, right? It's about having the skills that allow you to make those choices and allow you to make those changes.
yeah.
That's what
It's
it's
like we
worth.
got to figure it out for ourselves, right? So
Yes.
what's going to work for us? And it may
Yes.
not look anything like how
What
it'll
somebody
work
else
for
is
someone
doing.
else.
Yeah. But
Right.
I do encourage people, and I find this with women as well, going back to asking for help. Like someone is going through what you're going through. They are. And keeping it to yourself doesn't really, it makes you feel alone and it makes you
Yeah.
feel as if no one understands. When the reality is there are a lot of people who would understand. And even if they
Yeah.
don't have exactly the situation you have, there are people dealing with difficult things
Yep.
every day. I'm no different than anybody else. Like, honestly, my problem may be different,
Right.
but everyone's problems are personal to themselves. It's the
Right.
worst thing that could happen to them. So talk to other people, get ideas, get suggestions, get a community, get someone who you can share this with, who really is going to understand. They are going to understand, even if it's not exactly the same situation.
Right. Right. Because the skills you need to figure it out are really the same skills, even though the situation is different.
That's exactly right.
So
The
teaching those, helping others learn the skills, and it's why you and I are so passionate about what we do. We're still going through it. This journey is never over.
no,
Not until the good Lord says it is,
that's
right?
right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we're just we're just a few steps ahead of some others and helping them figure out what we've already figured out. That's all it is.
That's exactly right. And the passion to just help in general. Like,
Yeah.
I just have a passion to help in
Yeah.
general. I want to see women achieve their goals, whatever those may be. That's why I work with women. I want them to achieve the goals they want to achieve. And I just want to help them get the construct to do that. Right.
And I love that you are working with young women and in high school and college and
Yes.
helping them at a younger age than we learned it.
Right.
It
Took a
took
lot of
us a while to
years.
figure it out, right?
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
years. A lot
Yeah.
of years. And
I love that you're doing that. Thank
I
you
think
for what you do with
well,
young
thank you.
women. Yeah, I
I
think that's
think they
fabulous.
need young women need role models first and
Yes,
foremost. But they
absolutely.
need to see that it's not sometimes when you're a teenager, let's be honest, things look worse than they actually are. Like, that's just how they feel, right?
But that's their world,
It
right?
is their world. Yep. And
Yeah,
so I think having a greater perspective too helps them to come out of that a little bit with a little bit better mindset, some more self confidence, and really build themselves up for the next part of their lives.
yeah, yeah. And to understand that this is a journey and
Yes.
there are lots of stepping stones and there are lots of bridges to get over. And first you got to build the bridges and
Yep.
then you got to walk the bridges and get to the other side and then there's another bridge to build.
Yep. There's
That's
no
and
finish line though. Like, no finish line at all.
no.
You and
Mm-mm, no, not unless we give up.
right.
Yeah.
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 Unless you're like the other frog in the cream, right?
Yeah.
Unless you just choose to give
That's
up,
right.
you
That's
know?
right.
And
Yep. Yep.
that's just never been an option for me. And I hope it's not to any listeners either.
Well, that's what makes you such a great role model, Melanie,
Oh, well, thank you.
because
Thank
you have taken your condition and turn it to a new ability, not a disability, right? It's
you. Yes.
a new way of looking at things and helping others in the meantime. I love that.
You
All
focus.
right. So how can we better understand where we are as it relates to self leadership?
Yeah, so there are actually some really good assessments out there. I do them on EIQ and motivation. There are others as well. I think just getting a basis of understanding of what self leadership is, what it brings to your life. It really is about helping you achieve your goals, whether that's a job promotion or a raise, or better relationships. So getting a basis of where you are against those skills is really critical. And then taking the step to just learn more, right? To learn more about who you are, to learn more about the skills that you could be gaining. Because any skill that you increase in your emotional intelligence, or in self leadership benefits the people that maybe you lead. benefits maybe your leadership at work or even your leadership at home. These are skills that transfer both business and home. So I think you start with assessing your skills and you go from there. You start figuring out where your gaps are and deciding how to build those gaps.
Something just occurred to me that I think a lot of younger women may be thinking. Um, and I deal with some clients who are don't yet have the leadership title,
Uh-huh.
and they don't think of themselves as leaders,
Hmm.
right?
Sure.
I just want to make the point here that what Melanie and I are talking about is it's called self leadership for a reason.
Yes.
It starts with each one of us,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
and how we are self aware, how we hold ourselves accountable, uh, the choices and decisions we make, and how we make them, the confidence we have, the courage we have, the creative thinking we have, the goal setting we have, all of those things
Yep.
are part of self, and emotional intelligence, of course, are all part of self leadership. And it starts from there. So even though you may not have the leadership title yet, and if you do have the leadership title and you want to get better at what
Right.
you do, these are great tips that
You're exactly
definitely.
right. Self leadership it's about being able to manage yourself. So you don't have to have direct reports in order to be a good self leader,
Right.
but having good self leadership skills also helps you to be a better people leader. So it's
Yeah.
really basic skills that you need to learn to accomplish your own goals.
And you may not lead at work, but you're leading at home,
Absolutely.
right? If you're a mom, you're leading at home.
Yep.
You're setting an example for family and friends
Yep.
about who you are and how you show up, how you want to be treated.
Yeah. And you're teaching your children the same things,
Right.
right?
By example.
We
That's
are role models for our
yeah.
children.
They're
So
watching.
every
They're
minute of
definitely
every
watching.
day.
Yeah. They're watching. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes,
there's so many good. I mean, this is a conversation that permeates every area of our lives.
it
It's
does.
not just a career conversation.
No,
It's a people conversation. It's a human conversation. It's
it is.
about how we show up as humans.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And it's about having the skills to just continually improve on
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Raising the bar. I've always said I don't compete with other women. I don't want to compete with other women. I compete with myself. That's what I do. I raise the bar for myself. I
Right.
want to help other women raise their own bar, right? And
Right.
that's what self-leadership is about. It's about raising your own bar. Um,
Love
so
that.
that's why I love that.
Yeah. Love that. Raising your own bar.
Raising your own
Yeah.
bar.
And not being satisfied with where you're at. It's okay to take a little rest.
Oh,
You know,
100%. You
it's
should take
okay, right?
rest.
Absolutely. So you've
It-
achieved something great. Celebrate that.
yeah.
Celebrate it hard.
Celebrate
Uh,
it and give yourself that natural reward, right? It's a
and
natural
right,
reward.
reward yourself. That's
Mhm.
right. And then, rest a little bit and then figure out, okay, what's next?
That's right.
What's next?
Resting helps you determine the next step. There's something so good about
Mm,
resting in between,
yeah.
right? And let's
I
face
call it
it,
I call it the power of the pause, and
yes,
it's so
yes,
underrated.
it is. It is. Every
We
one of
don't
us
do it
needs
enough. Yeah.
mental rest, not just physical rest, but mental rest. And
Yeah.
I think about these women who constantly have transitions in their life, right? Let's face it, we go from being daughters to usually being wives of some sorts or students, taking care of children to then taking care of our spouse or taking care of our parents. Like, we constantly are transitioning in life. And then some of us have even more transitions in the middle of that. But those transitions and having self leadership and having the emotional intelligence to handle that makes it that much more, much less challenging, right? It's less challenging to go through those big transitions in life.
And if we do that, transitioning over time, and we are, or as we do that, make those transitions, and we are self-aware, each one gets just a little easier.
It does. It really
Just
does.
a little easier.
Kind
Yeah.
of think of it like building blocks, right? Those
Yeah.
building blocks that you're building, every step makes it feel a little easier because you
Yeah.
have the skills in place
That's right.
to manage to it.
Yeah. So when life turns you upside down, and it can,
And it will.
just it for most people it will at one time or another, and if your life is like mine, many times over,
Right.
then the way to get through it is to get through it and learn from it and build the resilience for it,
Yes.
and use all of those self-leadership and emotional intelligence
Yeah.
skills that Melanie is talking about here today.
It helps build resilience for sure.
It does. I have loved this conversation and reconnecting with you, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining
Same.
us today. Would you wrap it up for us? Just tie this up in a bow for us. What are the kind of the key takeaways?
Yeah, I think the key takeaways are this. We as people and our behaviors and the world that we live in are closely related to each other, right? We create that world through our choices, through the skills, through the things that we bring to life. And having an awareness of yourself, having appreciation of yourself, being able to manage to that really is the foundation for building a life which brings you what you want out of life. It brings you your goals. And I think that is how I would wrap it up. Bring yourself what it is that you're trying to achieve.
You know, it's like owning it, right?
It is. It's
It's
owning
just
it. Own it.
owning it. Own it. Own it. Yeah. Know what you want. Figure that out. And
Yep.
then own it and go get it.
And go get it.
Yeah.
And get the help you need along
And
the
if
way
you
to go get it.
exactly, and if you need help doing that, just reach out.
Reach
Yeah.
out and go get it.
Love that. All right, Melanie, thank you so much
Thank
for all
you.
that you do and what the brilliance you've shared here today. I appreciate it. I am sure that people are going to want to connect with you. So tell us the one best way to do that.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I think you can do it at leadershipdesigncenter.com. You can reach out to me there. I think you're going to drop in my email as well, which is excellent. I think, gave your listeners a mini assessment that they could use to kind of identify their own self leadership skills. So check that out too. And then come find me. Come find me and we'll have a conversation.
And connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn
Yeah.
too. Absolutely. I'm there.
Yeah. That's great. Melanie, thank you again for being here. I really
Thank you,
appreciate you
Maria.
and all you do.
Well, right back at you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for those who are watching and listening, I appreciate that you are part of our community as well. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share it. Share it widely. Creating and sharing resources for women is just one of my favorite things to do. And that's why we do this show every week, because each one is a resource for somebody out there. Another favorite thing of mine is being a career and life coach for women who are navigating challenging times and helping them get unstuck, explore new possibilities, and find harmony in their careers and lives. So again, if something in this episode resonates and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out. Let's talk. The links for Melanie and I are in the show notes below. And don't forget to watch Melanie's TED Talk. You'll be as inspired by it as I was. And then let's meet again here next Thursday. Same time, same place for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.